Hey folks, welcome back. I thought I'd go ahead and do a demo on creating a desert scene in 8 minutes. And this is all being done real time. And if you've watched these videos before, you know that one of my favorite tools for digital painting is the Lasso tool in Photoshop. It's a very versatile tool. And when you couple that with the hue and saturation panel, it does a really good job of allowing you to quickly dial in colors and work with shapes. And here you can see I'm just setting up my composition. I'm establishing depth by going from dark to medium to light so that we have colors receding as we get further into the background. And I'm using the polygon lasso tool here to create this obelisk, keeping in mind perspective. And again, starting with shapes. And also while I'm, working through this, I'm thinking about where the light is going to come from. So by having the right side of the obelisk darker, we're implying that the light is coming from the other side. It could be a side that's in the background. It could be from the side on the top left-hand side, I guess. So that part hasn't been established yet. Here I'm using the polygon lasso tool to add some stone-like cracks. I'm selecting the base layer and hitting Command J to duplicate the layer, and just making an irregular pattern that looks like the crevices that you might see between two or more stones. I'm going to do the same thing for the front. And as I make the stones, I'm also thinking about the perspective. I want it to look believable. Command J, Command U. Command J duplicates a layer or duplicates a selection. It's definitely one that you should know. Command U brings up the hue saturation panel and allows you to quickly dial in colors without having to revisit the swatches or color panel too often. Here I'm adding some depth to the interior space of the structure, and I'm creating a focal point. I'll have a light yellow to draw the viewer in. If you have a composition that's full of medium and dark values, having something light will draw your eye to that specific area. Here I'm adding some texture using my square brush. I have a video on how to make this square brush so that you can make it for yourself and use it. I'll put a link to that in the description. As I work, I keep things on separate layers. Just makes it easier for me to make selections and apply individual textures, which I will do before too long. With a big soft round brush, which is built into Photoshop, I will now add a slightly darker value to give the sand a little bit more depth. You can use the left and right bracket keys to reduce and increase the size of the brush respectively. And because I have each dune on a separate layer, it makes it much easier for me to quickly select. You just have to hold down the Command key on the layer in order to go ahead and make that selection. Now I'm going for a more stylized look compared to a more realistic look, but that's the type of aesthetic that I prefer. But you can always apply the concepts that I'm showing you here to something that is going to be more realistic. It's just a matter of how much time do you want to spend. If something is well designed, it's going to have a strong shape associated with it. So here I'm going back to a layer above my background layer, and I'm adding some light values in. And that just gives us an idea of where the lighting is coming from. It might be coming over from the background dune. Here I'm using a color unifier. I'm flooding the topmost layer with red because I want the intensity of the heat to be felt. So I'm adding a little bit of kind of an atmosphere. And now I'm going to bring in a texture. I have that on a secondary screen. I have a bunch of I guess they're called paint textures. You can find them on various design resource sites like Design Cuts and creativemarket.com. It's a good thing to have in your toolbox. And here what I'm doing is just cropping that texture to match the front. And I'm going back and selecting the light so that it shines through. And that texture kind of gives it a little bit more nuance. It doesn't look like a flat color. It has a little bit more of a complex gradient. I'm doing the same thing on the opposite side. And now I'm going to add a little bit of bloom using my soft brush and the screen layer effect. I'll come back in just to add a little bit of that reflected light. And then for scale purposes, I'm adding just two very small birds. That gives us a general idea of how large this obelisk actually is. And then to finish things off, I'm merging all the layers into one, and I'm using the iris blur. And if you haven't used this tool, it's pretty powerful because what it allows you to do is create this really interesting depth of field effect. And I'm moving it to where the center of the iris blur effect is at the center of the obelisk. The interior radial can be used to control the transition from crisp to blurry. You can see how that has an effect here. And I'm just trying to give that sense of depth and also that sense of haze that you would see if you were in a desert environment. And so this is usually the last step of the process. So there you go. Here's the final reveal. If you find value in the videos that I'm making, please like and subscribe so that more folks can discover the channel. I want to help as many people as possible level up their digital game. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.